Mita, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Oh,
Your
there
book. So for
it is.
people who are watching
Yay.
on YouTube, I'm very excited to.
Oh, thank you.
The title is so catchy.
Thank you.
It's like, okay, yes, everyone, yes.
I think I nailed it with this title for this book, my second book. So you get better with
Yes.
titles, I suppose, over time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here. I like to start every interview by asking guests, as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I wanted to be a teacher. I
Hmm.
had a little chalkboard and I would make my brother and his friends sit there and try to teach them stuff and they weren't having it. He's younger than me and they would all just run away and be like, we don't want to do this. We don't want to play. I'd be like, spell your name, do this. I remember I always wanted to be a teacher.
Oh, and how do you think that connects to what you do today?
Well, I'm on a mission to fix what's broken in our workplaces. And I feel like through speaking, coaching, writing,
Hmm.
my social media following on LinkedIn, it's all I'm teaching, right? Like that's what I like to do. I like to teach, but I also like to learn from
Mm,
others and I like to
mm,
share. And so I think that's how that's translated for me in
mm,
my career.
I love that. Well, tell us about what you do today. So we're here to talk about your book, but tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about.
I am on a mission to fix what's broken in our workplaces. I've been both a marketing and an HR executive, and I've written two books. We're talking about the devil emails at midnight, what good leaders can learn from bad bosses today. My first book, Reimagine Inclusion, Debunking 13 Myths to Transform Your Workplace, came out in 2023, and that also made the Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller list and did really well. And I ended up leaving, I say, jumped off the ladder last year to really focus
Congrats.
full time on thank you, on my writing and coaching and speaking. And that's what I'm committed to doing in this moment.
Awesome.
And I'm also on a mission. I always say this, the biggest job I have is trying to raise kind and inclusive human beings. I'm sure every generation of parents said it before us, but it's a really hard time to be raising kids. And so that's like the singular thing that's top of mind for me on all the things that I do.
I love that. How many kids do you have?
I have two kids. I have a son who's about to be 13, going on 23, and a daughter who's 10, going on 20. So that's a glimpse into my life. Yes, you can send me unsolicited parenting advice. DM me. I'm open
Next,
to
the next
multiple
book.
advice. Yes, maybe the next book. Yeah.
Tell us, how did you go from wanting to be a teacher to now being an author? Like, how did that journey happen? And
Gosh.
yeah, how did you
Um,
go? I imagine it wasn't a straight line.
no, it wasn't a straight line. I thought it was gonna be a doctor. I'm the
Ah.
proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents, and everyone I knew growing up was a doctor or engineer, and
Mm.
that's what the vision of success was like. I was in college, I did everything but take the MCAT, but
Oh,
I
wow.
had a very strong background in the sciences and math as well as the liberal arts. And then I was like, I can't stand the sight of blood. What
Mm.
am I doing? I don't want to be a doctor. And then I was always really interested in writing and always really interested in whether it was volunteering my time, teaching or tutoring. It's something that's been a through line
Ah.
throughout my life. If I go back now that you're asking me this question, I've always been somehow trying to teach in some form. And
Mm.
then I ended up having three fiction novels I wrote in my 20s. I had an
Oh my
agent.
God. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And I remember she dumped me really meanly over email
Oh.
because it just didn't want to represent me anymore. And that happens. But I also was young and stubborn. I remember meeting with an editor at Penguin Random House, and she said to me, I really like this novel, but you'd have to change X, Y, and Z. And I was young and stubborn. And I was like, I'm just going to write another novel. I'm not going to change that. And so, anyways, and then I was left thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Writing doesn't pay. Writing certainly didn't
Mm.
pay then. It doesn't pay now. But I thought, well, I really like marketing and storytelling. So let me think about what I can do with that. So instead of getting a master's in creative writing, I started to look at business school and applied to business school and went to Duke, but majored in product management, right? And did that and then had
Mm.
a career as a marketer and then went from thinking about the external consumer to the internal consumer, right? One of our most important stakeholders is our employees, and somehow they sometimes are the least important in some companies. And that's what I started doing and thinking. And then I was just writing the whole time. And that's a whole other story, but finally got my first and then second book published.
Wow. A few things stand out from that story. One, that you had the courage to pivot when you figured out you didn't want to be a doctor.
That takes courage. But I also, my dad used to always say, follow your passion, the money will follow. Like, I also had
Oh.
parents who were very supportive, given that I've had many friends who are the children of immigrant parents and
Mhm.
immigrant parents who sacrifice a lot and come to a new country. It is education at all costs. And these are the types of jobs that are stable.
Mhm.
And these are the types of jobs that will provide security for
Yes.
you and a future family. And so there's no time to explore passions. It is really people who have lived and grown up in survival mode. That really comes from being in survival mode. So I actually have a lot of empathy when people are like, these are the only things you can do because they're coming from a place of survival and they've had to go through a lot. My parents were very open to me and my brother exploring a lot of things. And so
Mm.
when I said to them, I'm actually not going to become a doctor, I want to go into business, they were like, okay. There was really no like, other
Pushback.
people were like shocked. You're
Sure.
wasting your parents' money. I can't believe you
Mm.
do that. But my parents were always very like, okay, that's what you want to do. We're going to support you.
Wow. Also, then you had another big pivot when you left corporate,
Yes.
finally do this full time, and
Yeah.
you've been doing it this whole time, even as when you were so young, writing those novels.
Yes. 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 And found my way back. Yeah. To
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah. So tell us about your book, Meet That. Tell us about how it came about.
So I wrote my first book. I knew I wanted to write a second. I want to write a third and a fourth and a fifth. I knew that, but I was like, what's the next book? What do I do? What am I going to write about? What am I going to say? I don't want to write a book just to write a book. Again, it's back to teaching.
Mm.
What can I teach someone through the book? And so 2 years ago, my mother's home was pretty badly flooded and
Mm.
destroyed in Massachusetts.
Mm.
And it is really traumatic when you're in a soaked home, whether it's by fire
Mm.
or water that's been ravaged. And so I'm in my childhood bedroom trying to save things. I'm
Mm.
trying to save Barbies that are soaked. They're not going to be worth anything on eBay. Drawings and trophies and medals from elementary school, all these things we hold on to. And I find a notebook from my 20s. And if you meet me today and we're having coffee, I will have a notebook in my purse. I love writing things down, pen to paper. If I have a thought in a meeting or I see something on the street, it's an article or a poster, or a chapter for something else. I just write things down. And I look at this notebook, and it is during a period of my time when I went through three difficult bosses. I
Mm.
have nicknames for them. There's vignettes. There is detail and there's a lot of emotion. I still have it in my office. I brought it back from my mom's soaked home. So we're driving away from her house, and I have this thought. This is a Mean Girls burn book moment
For work.
for work. And I might be in someone's notebook. Because if you're listening
Oh.
to this or watching us on YouTube, you will probably have said, yeah, I worked for Mita years ago. She was micromanaging Mita. Maybe you named me Maleficent. I don't know. But isn't that interesting to think about? It's so easy to name someone a Disney villain or a Marvel character, a bad boss, villainize them, glamorize them, like The Devil Wears Prada, right? One of my favorite movies of all time. But hey, what if we're doing things
Mm.
that we don't realize that are impacting the way in which our teams can or can't work? And so the opening lines of the book, opening talk about them in code, right? You would never know. Some of them were quite descriptive. You might have known if you were
Sure. You're in the
overhearing.
organization.
But I also think that's a way to create emotional distance.
Yes.
If it's like an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend or partner or someone who's done you wrong, you create a nickname, it creates emotional distance from that person. It's a safety net. And it's also like, well, I could never be that person. I could never be as bad as them.
Mm.
That's what I also talk about in the Double Emails at Midnight.
Mm. Well, I'm an executive coach and I do 360 interviews for leaders.
Okay. Wow.
And I just got off a couple just before this call, but the person who was giving me feedback about a leader had a nickname for that leader.
There you go.
And it was not a nickname that I'm sure this person is aware of.
Was it a clever nickname? Obviously, don't name it, but was it
Um,
clever? Do you
It
find?
was like, okay, that's funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, okay.
And then, this person says, yeah, we all call this person this.
Mhm. Wow.
That resonates. Yeah. Sometimes as leaders, and I'm sure this leader has no idea that this is how this person's being perceived.
Yeah. What's interesting about what you just shared is that one of the things I also talk about in the Devil Emails at Midnight is bad bosses actually create community. And what
Yes.
I mean by
Yes.
that is that there's trauma bonding. You start to normalize the behavior.
Mm.
You're trying to endure this person, whether it's something that's impacting your mental health or they're a notorious micromanager like I was. You're like in the trenches together and you start to protect each other. You start to have bonds. And then I think the downside of that is, well, the upside is if one of those people called me from the time I worked for Medusa, who maybe we'll talk about, I would hang up with you right now. Those bonds are so strong that you show up for those people. And then on the downside, you actually stay longer than maybe you should. And you
Because you
normalize
had
this
that
behavior.
connection.
Yeah, and I remember there's three bosses in the double emails at midnight who deeply impacted my mental health. And I remember at one point meeting a friend, two friends I hadn't met in like a year. And I walk into the restaurant and you could just see them looking at me because I physically had changed. I had lost weight. The
Mm.
light was just out in my eyes. And as I'm talking about what's happening at work, they're looking at me just sort of in disbelief with their jaws to the floor because you're surrounding yourself with people who've normalized the behavior. And
Mm.
when you share it with someone who's not experiencing that trauma with you on the team, they're like,
How
what are you
could you?
still doing there? What? Like they're just in disbelief, in shock.
Yeah, it's very clear from the outside.
Yes, yes, very clear.
I used to work at a accounting firm and working 80-hour weeks. I
Wow.
think of that time as like very formative and the people were
Mhm.
amazing. And the culture is you work a ton and there's no flexibility, et cetera. So 80-hour weeks, having health issues, and everyone was telling me to quit, but I wouldn't listen. We started as a class of 60 new associates. So there is that trauma bonding. There is that feeling of we're all in it together.
Yes.
And we don't know any other way of working because it's you get hired right out of college. And people who stay long term have been there their entire careers. They don't know any different. And so it's very normal and normalized that this is the way it
Yeah.
is. And
And sometimes it becomes a rite of passage. I mean, I don't know about your situation, but when you're starting as a class, it depends on what the sort of circumstances and context. But I've also seen that if you're in a field like investment banking or you're working for a law firm and you're coming in together as a class, certainly when I was in marketing as well, it's like we were starting as assistants, right? So it's like there's this moment of the rite of passage, sink or swim cultures, right? They want to see how you can do in these moments.
there's also a feeling like you can't leave because this is it.
Yes, you got it. You worked so
You
hard.
made
How are you going to
it. You
walk away
can't
from
leave.
this? There's like
Yeah.
10 other people who would give their left pinky or whatever. They would give something to have your job. So you're going
Right.
to walk away and not put up with, I don't know, someone just screaming and yelling. I mean, okay, that sucks, but you got the title.
I remember having a person who I worked for who it was just a really traumatic experience for me. And I
Oh,
held on to
sorry to
it
hear
for a
that.
long time.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I see that with my clients, right? So they might have had a bad experience with the prior manager and they're still tethered to that
it's
experience.
hard.
And so we have to work on kind of cutting that tether so that you're not associating that experience with your new environment.
I had a friend, a very close friend, talk to me recently about someone I had worked for, I want to say over a decade ago.
Mm.
It was not a good situation, but as she was bringing up that someone had talked to this person, I started having a trauma response. I haven't seen this.
Mm.
And then, of course, took, had a good night of sleep and I was fine the next day. But it is like it's been years. And even still, some of these responses,
Oh,
like I
yeah.
said, there's three bosses in the book who, if I saw today in person, I might have that response at first
Oh,
physically.
I
Yeah.
would definitely have a response too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's normal. Yeah. So you wrote this book. What are you hoping that people get out of this book?
I really hope that people think about that one behavior they might have that exacerbated under stress can become a bad boss behavior. And so for me, we go back to micromanaging. That's my notorious behavior. And what does that mean? Is that I can be really demanding excellence and not coaching it. I
Mm.
can be wanting to do people's jobs for them versus coaching, teaching, and training. This happens, and I'm sure you've seen this with your work. People going from individual contributor to leading teams for the first time, that's the moment you're
Mhm.
going to see whether people rise to the occasion and start to realize it's not my job to do your job. It's my job to teach you, train you, and make you a leader. I was one of those people who failed up as a manager for the first few years, meaning I was the micromanager, got promoted, got a fancy title. I moved from like a cubicle to like a half office or some setup. I was like, yay, got some more money. And now you're in charge of all these people. Are like, is there a manual? But no, like you're supposed to pretend it's okay and just do it. Like, but no one, not no one, but most
There's no
companies,
training.
there's no training, there's no coach like you, there's no one like me coming in to talk about my book. The world's changed, but even today, because we're so time strapped, cash strapped, all of those
Mm.
things, we're not helping people to say, like, hey, this is actually scary. Congratulations. And it's okay to be scared that you're going to now be leading this team. You've never done it before.
Mm.
So I want to help support you. And here's some things here's a book I'm going to tell you to read. Here's a podcast. Here's a mentor I'm going to ask you to meet within the org. We don't do that, right? I won't say blanket statement, but
Yeah, sure.
many companies don't do that. And so going back to your question of like, so for me, I know that's my behavior. So am I micromanaging or am I holding people accountable, right? There's a positive to that behavior too.
Sure.
Micromanaging can be holding people accountable. It can be seen as setting standards, high
Hmm.
standards, but explaining what those standards are and helping people achieve them. Or it can be like changing the image in the deck, or the boss who was notorious. Times New Roman font 14 to 12 to 11. You're like, what is going on here? Right. So it's like, think about that. And I really want people to think about that and watch for how that behavior can swing when you're stressed.
Oh, I love that you share that because I see that come up all the time, by the way.
I'm sure
Like
you
when
do. Yeah.
become leaders, one of the questions that I think your book will help answer for people is like, what is it costing you to have that mindset?
Mm.
Like, no one can do it as good as I can. I'm just going to
Right.
keep them.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds like your book can kind of help you become aware of what it's costing us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's costing you a lot. You're not stepping into what you're meant to do next. That's the thing that I see leaders struggle with.
Mm.
You're holding on to things that you should let go of and have other people do and go into
Mhm.
what you're meant to do next. And then I will also just say this clearly. If there is something that only you yourself can do or you yourself want to do, tell your team that. I was the notorious person. I worked in beauty for years. I'm all about finding like a great image of a woman washing her face, right? And it's like, okay, but like, Mita, you told us what to find. You didn't like it. We spent hours on it, and now you're just redoing it and finding whatever you're looking for, whatever shot. So rather than saying, you know what, we're going to work on this deck for management, these first two slides are really important. I'm going to
Mm.
own it. And I'm telling you why, but go ahead and do the rest. And then maybe as you start to learn my aesthetic and style and in beauty and in some other industries, it's kind of notorious, right? So, like, fine, but just be clear on why you're doing it rather than just redoing their work. That's the devastating part. I don't think anytime I've said to my team, I'm going to help own this, no one's like, no, no. Everyone's like, thank you, right? Like, pitch in and do. But the worst is when you come in and you redline it all and just send it back to them.
Yes, I've seen that come up in 360s where it's people want to know the reason behind
Yes.
those edits, those red lines.
Teach me. Teach
Yeah,
me.
like what, how are
Yes.
you thinking about this? What do you know about the client that maybe I don't know?
Yes.
And in this presentation, and then it makes sense versus otherwise it just appears like this leader is making all these changes for no reason or because he's picky or she's picky or and there might be a reason why and being
Yeah.
explicit about that. I think about your title of your book, The Devil Emails at Midnight, and how now, because I pivoted from accounting, financial reporting to coaching, and I love it. But now as a coach, I'm very intentional about when I email
Yes.
or I schedule send stuff. So never on the weekends, never, like I try to like be
Yes. Yeah.
very intentional because I don't want someone getting an email on their phone and having to now think about it in their head for even a few seconds, even if
Yeah.
like I'll respond.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So even as you talk about the devil emails at midnight in the title, I'm like, oh man, how many emails did I receive?
I mean, I've been the devil who emails him. And it's really interesting. I'm working with this company and this doing some research for them. And this executive said to me, if you're meeting with the CEO, you probably don't want your book
Oh.
in your back shot. They're going to have a reaction to that. And I was like, well, I welcome that. That's really interesting. And when you read the opening chapters of The Devil Emails at Midnight, this is the part that is missing from the title. And of course, it's the catching title. It's the boss who never had time for me except at midnight.
Hmm.
Time is the most precious commodity in relationships. And that's what we complain about the most. And in this situation, I was so excited to work for this boss. The feeling was not mutual. She never made time for me except between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. She would dump her inbox out.
Mm.
Mita, can you get this proposal to the customer? Can you make sure these samples are ordered? Can you pay the vendor? In the office, I would chase her around like a
Mhm.
golden retriever.
Hmm.
I just wanted time with her. I even chased her out to the parking lot one time.
Hmm.
Like I just was like, "Hey, do you have 5 minutes?" And she drove off. And so that's the
Hmm.
point is that like when you're leading teams, my question to anyone listening to ask yourself, if you don't have time for your team, why are you leading? Like
Hmm.
if you don't have time to coach, teach, or train, any of these things we're talking about, right? And I love that you're so self-aware in your relationships with individuals you're coaching to say, should I be emailing at this time? And it is also about the repetitive behavior and nature of it. I think we're moving back in the age of AI to hustle culture again,
Hmm.
right? And this embracing of it. And it's like, how do I keep up with this? And it's like, at some point, you're going to burn out. Let me tell you, I had a book come out 30 days ago. You better believe I've been burning the midnight oil, but I'm also resting and recovering. And that's what leaders need to do. I'm not saying that like people should never email at midnight, but I'm also saying you have to have drive periods and you have to understand like when you're driving your team and when you're resting and recovering and when you're driving again. And also, I don't know about you, but other than selling beauty products and SaaS software, I have never been a 911 operator, an emergency room medical professional, a crisis counselor. Nothing I've ever done in my life has been life or death. So, what is it that's so important that you constantly like? What is it in terms of like my need as a leader to be constantly emailing off hours?
Mm.
And what I find is that people will say, let's say I'm the boss and I email you at 11:59. Just sending this thought through, take care of it tomorrow, don't respond. What happens is you see that and you want to please me, right? That's like we want to. We want to impress our bosses. You're going to write back if you're awake, right? And then I'm going to write back. That's what's also interesting. People say don't respond and then you respond and then we just get into that happened with I can think of with
Mm.
certainly the devil that I opened the book with, but also with other leaders in my
Sure.
career. It's like
Yeah.
respond on your time, but when I respond, you respond back right away.
Mm.
So it's almost like this instant gratification that I'm relevant. I'm available like an Uber app all the time.
I'm committed.
Yes, I'm
I'm a
committed.
hard
Yes.
worker. I'm
Yes.
responsive.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot there. And then as bosses, making it explicit that it's okay and setting a culture at the company I partner with now, there's this culture of you don't email after hours and on the
Yeah.
weekend, right? It's now so ingrained. I mean, I do it sometimes, but like so ingrained that it's like I really think about it. But versus before, I remember being at the accounting firm having calls at midnight. I remember a senior manager falling asleep on a call because he would wake up at like 4 a.m. and he
Gosh.
got on a call at midnight about something, not life or death. And he fell asleep on the call. And I remember thinking, man, he must be so tired. He just fell asleep.
Yeah. I mean, gosh.
Yeah. I started this podcast because I wanted to have people learn, reflect, and also think about the work they're doing. And if they're not happy, that they have options,
Yes.
right? That if they're working for that devil, we can always work on things, but if it just isn't working, then maybe it's time to leave, or maybe it's time to find a new environment.
Yeah.
What would you want to say to that person who's listening, thinking, man, I work for a devil and there's nothing I can do that can change that?
Don't wait another minute to craft your exit strategy. I'm not saying to anyone in this environment they should resign tomorrow.
Sure.
There's the reality of people have bills to pay and taking care of yourself and others. But I have been that person who has done the downward spiral. I work for a boss I can't stand. It's not working out. They're verbally abusive, whatever the case may be. You start losing pieces of yourself and you just start to become this person no one at home wants to be around, no one at work wants to be around. You become toxic. I've been there. And so before that starts to happen, where there's smoke, there's fire, you see the repeated signs. You've tried to manage up. You've tried to give feedback. You've tried all of these things. You need to start making your exit plan, which means have your resume ready. If it's a large enough company where you can move internally, go start talking to other people that are your career allies. Talk to people externally, family members, start volunteering, something that's closely aligned to what you do or something different to help continue to build your confidence up. Revisit a childhood hobby, something that like as work is trying to maybe take the joy and confidence out of you, make sure you keep working on yourself. That's so important. And, my sort of big advice to anyone right now, as I'm also coaching and speaking to lots of people, is that loyalty is dead in the workplace. And that's a hard thing to say out loud. And it's true. The social contract is gone. It's no longer that I work for you, I get a pension, healthcare, stable paycheck, guaranteed job security, and you have my unwavering loyalty. And so everyone, whether you're happy or you're in a tough situation, have your resume ready. Keep building skills and just keep supporting each other and meeting new people and being open to different possibilities of what you could do next.
I love that. Where can people learn more about you? Where can people buy your book? Tell us all the things.
Yes. So The Devil Emails at Midnight, What Good Leaders Can Learn from Bad Bosses. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, your local independent bookstore. I also did the audio, which was really fun. I did
Nice. You have a great
audiobooks.
voice.
Oh, thank you. So I did
Yeah.
the audio so you can listen to me read you the book. And you can find me at mitamallick.com and you can find me on LinkedIn. It's my preferred social media platform. Send me a DM. I love meeting people there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.